Welcome to Zen Money Monday, weekly conversations with innovators, thought leaders, and entrepreneurial junkies about building good businesses, exploring what the idea of Zen money really means, and how to achieve it. With your host, author, business strategist, and Zen Money CFO, Liz LaJoy.
Welcome back to Zen Money Monday. If you missed last week's episode, I had a great conversation with a gentleman named Josh Hainum, who is a co-founder of Interact Quiz Builder, which is a great online marketing platform. And we talked about service versus sales and his understanding of money and how it's shifted over the years as he's built a 7+ figure business. It was a really wonderful conversation. If you want to check it out, you can just go to zenmoneymap.com/034 to catch that episode. And today I want to talk about our energy, our money, how we think about growth in our business. It came to me when I was doing some gardening recently that, there's a couple different ways to look at our businesses. And I was cleaning out lily beds, which have this wonderful way of just kind of inching greater and growing bigger and becoming more full year after year after year, because they come back and they're a little bit better. You have a few more blooms on them. And we're at this time of year where we're starting to see some progress out there in nature. And I wanted to draw the parallel to ways in which we, I should say, look at our business over time. So I think what happens, especially in the first, I want to say 5 years or so, there's a lot of pushing and there's a lot of comparing ourselves to what's going on outside of ourselves. Maybe that lasts longer than that, but particularly in the beginning, I think it's easy to beat ourselves up a little bit if we're not growing as quickly as we think we should. And I'll go back to the gardening thing. Back in the day when I first moved into our current house and started living with my husband, who was not my husband at the time, there was a lot of outdoor gardening stuff that I wanted to do. And I had this vision in my head for what it could look like, right? So this happens in our business too. We say, I envision this being a very successful business. Maybe we have some monetary numbers associated with that where we say, I want to be making X dollars for myself, or I think this business could be generating Y dollars in revenue. And I want to see it as soon as possible. The thing about businesses, though, is that we can either be focusing on slow growth or we can be focusing on fast growth. Both of those things may get you to the same place. They may get you to the same place in a different time frame. What I want you to be aware of, though, is that there's a cost to that. So we'll go back to my lily analogy, right? Lilies are in the ground. I got them for free from my mom, who's a wonderful gardener, and we have them all around our yard. But, when we got them, they were little bits and pieces hacked off of other things in her yard, and they came over. And in the first couple of years, they did a little bit of something, but they didn't really take off and create an entire edge of a border, for example, which was my ultimate vision. And back in the day when I was younger in particular, and maybe this is an age thing, but back in the day, I would have wanted to just go out and buy the big plants and get things so that it looks like your garden's well established before you've really, given it the time and energy and effort to get to that point. And you can certainly do that in your business too. We can pay for a lot of things to make our business look bigger and brighter than it actually is, especially in the beginning. And that might get you to where you want to be. Let's say we want to get to high 6 figures, low 7 figures within, a year or two. You can do that, but we need to spend a lot of money to make it happen, right? So we can have a gorgeous garden that has involved hiring people to bring in already, grown trees and bushes and things like that to landscape your business. Or we can take the slow growth approach, which says, like those lilies, I know they're going to get bigger, or hostas are another good example. They're going to get bigger year after year. And we also want to plan for that, because if we put a bunch of stuff together, really tightly packed in a garden, and then you have plants in there that really need to grow more, over time, it's also going to look cluttered and overrun. And my analogy here from a business standpoint is that means we might be spending a lot of money in different avenues to try and generate the kind of revenue that you want. So I just want you to think about what version of growth feels best to you. And again, there's nothing wrong with a fast growth approach with the, hiring a landscaping company to come in and redo your entire front garden beds to make them look absolutely beautiful, like they've been there for years and years and years, even though you just, put them in last year. There's nothing wrong with that version. I just want you to be aware of making that choice and the ramifications of it. So again, you can look great on the outside, but you might have to spend a lot and be running like a crazy person to make that happen. If that feels awesome to you, great. Let's have that be your strategy and your plan to grow your business. If, on the other hand, you're in a like, you know what, I don't want to use debt or credit to make this business really thrive. I want to grow organically, a la the Lily version or approach, then we have to just know that we need to be patient with ourselves and with our business. And that can be really hard to do, especially depending on the season or the year. It can be hard to stick to our guns and know that after, a long, hard winter, stuff is going to come up again. It is going to look, you are going to be able to see progress. Sometimes that slow road, while it does keep more money in our pocket and doesn't necessarily overextend us financially, it can also take a lot of patience. So if that's your version, and I think a lot of people, start businesses intending to be sort of the more slow growth model where you're not drinking from a fire hydrant constantly, but you're also not outlaying a bunch of cash to generate revenue so that your profits maybe aren't as big as they could be, but, the top dollar number is higher. Then if slow growth or a portion of your business is slow growth, then let's just, give ourselves some slack around we have to keep showing up. We have to keep doing the direct outreach type of work. We have to keep churning at a baseline level in terms of, asking for referrals and all of that great stuff that hopefully you're also doing, in the fast growth model. But either way, just recognize where you're at and take a deep breath and just, don't feel like you're supposed to be in a fast track if it works better for you financially to be in the slow track. The whole point of this conversation today is just to, maybe encourage you to take a look at, again, your numbers. Where is money coming in? Where is it going out? And what versions of growth are acceptable to you? So I think a lot of times we just, business kind of happens to us. And maybe we get a new idea. We see somebody doing it a little bit differently out there in the marketplace. And we pivot and say, okay, I'm just going to try this differently because I'm not comfortable with where I'm at right now. Totally normal thing to happen. I would claim that a portion of that is bare brain. However, and sometimes we end up doing this sort of turret gunning thing where we're following a trend or following something, trying something new because we haven't recognized that the things that you have put in place, which are working under the surface, right? New roots are getting sent out. New shoots are coming up. Maybe we aren't seeing fruition for this. We aren't seeing blooms come to this yet because it takes time, right? It takes time for the plant to grow. It takes time for the plant to generate energy, just as it does in your business. And if we look at it early in the season and forget all of the little things that you're doing, or not so little things, but that, we're not seeing the results of them right now. However, they will bear fruit later. That's an important thing to remind ourselves of so that, if you have a good solid plan and you're seeing progress, we don't need to scrap that in a moment of angst around why am I not growing faster? And I think we all feel that from time to time, but I just want to give you an example of the kind of time frame you might be looking at. So last winter, I was approached by somebody who was a connection with one of my very first clients. And it turned out that for over 3 years, I had been on her radar as somebody that she wanted to work with to learn how to manage her books better. She wanted to be able to understand her bookkeeping and not necessarily just pass it off to somebody else. She was finally ready to step into this. But like I said, that seed had been germinating for her, and I didn't even know it. It was a referral, like I said, from a client, but she had been sitting on it for 3 years. And it took her that long to get to a point in her business where it was the right time to do that kind of learning and to really take the bull by the horns in terms of her financial management, because she had been quite successful all along, successful enough that she didn't feel the need to really understand the ins and outs of her numbers and really kind of take things to the next level in terms of her pricing and her contractual, situation and all of that kind of good stuff. So I just thought it was really interesting because it just goes to show you that depending on your industry and depending on your clientele, you're going to have some people who raise their hands immediately and say, yep, I'm ready to go with you. And you're going to have other people who, like this particular client, had to get to a point where she was finally ready to do the work. And all along, she was intending to do it with me, it turns out. But we had to wait 3 years to get her to a point where she was ready to raise her hand and say, okay, now I have the time and the bandwidth and the space and the urgency to do this work with you. So there's two pieces of the puzzle here. One, like growth can happen and we're not aware of it. This is the analogy of, the plant is spreading out underground and we don't see it, but it doesn't mean it's not happening. So let's just recognize that for what it is. The more you show up on LinkedIn, the more you give great service and encourage people to refer you, all of those sales strategy type things really do make a difference. We just may not be aware of it. So, give yourself a little bit of slack if you're not feeling the growth happening, because there is the organic pieces of our growth puzzle. And then the other part of it, again, is back to, if you are really jonesing to be a 7-figure business, then you need to know your numbers. You need to understand what it's going to cost you, both in actual dollars, energy spent, people on your team that is going to be required to manage a business of that size, and just be prepared for what that means for your life. Because I think a lot of people have this kind of idea of, you see out there in Facebook ads, for example, I built a 6-figure business in 6 weeks and you can too, kind of stuff. Well, the reality is those people built those businesses that fast because they threw tons of ad dollars into selling. And if you're not prepared to do that, you don't have the resources to do that. Let's just be practical around what version of growth. Is it the slow lane? Is it the fast lane? Is it the medium, somewhere in between lane? Whatever it is, I just want you to be cognizant of it and feel really comfortable with where you're going. And of course, all of this is not to say that you can't shift, right? You may have pieces of your business that you're letting grow organically. You may have other pieces that you're really pushing right now that might change in a year. That might be very different in 5 years, right? We're very malleable beings as entrepreneurs and small business owners because we get excited about new ideas. We want to try new things. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I just want you to think about growth strategy today and how you can use that cognizantly and consciously for yourself, and not just, kind of let your business growth happen to you and then be, unhappy when it's not what you thought it would be based on all the hard work that you're putting in. So I hope that's helpful for you guys. Next week, we are going to be talking with Emily Aborn about building a really successful Facebook group. There's a lot of push for that right now. So I hope you find that conversation useful. So stay tuned. And in the meantime, I hope you have a fantastic week. Did you like this episode of Zen Money Monday? I would love to hear from you. If you want to submit a review of this podcast, all you have to do is visit ratethispodcast.com/Zen Money to let us know what you think. Would love to hear your feedback. Are you worried that you might not be catching all of the things that you need to in your financial management? You can get a jump on your money and never miss another financial step with my Quick Start Kit, which will set you on your path to Zen Money with 5 time-tested and easy-to-use, I promise, checklists, templates, bookkeeping tools, cheat sheets that are going to help you know what to do and when. If you are ready to master your cash flow and get your records in order and never miss another bookkeeping step, all you have to do is go to zenmoneymap.com/kit, K-I-T, to get started with that. Hope you enjoy.